Welcome back, where today we're going to be dissecting what was a shambolic evening of football for England, or arguably more importantly, Gareth Southgate, where England lost 4-0 against Hungary. And this has kind of encapsulated what has been a horrific couple of weeks for England, where they haven't won in 4 games. They've only scored 1 goal, and that was a penalty. So it's been a really, really bad time of it for England and Gareth. So I'm going to be analysing the game quickly against Hungary, the second game that is, and then analysing where Gareth goes from here. It's important to put into context that actually these England players have played so many minutes in the Premier League this season, and I don't think there's any excuses for all the performances that we've seen, which have been really, really poor. Having said that though, I think 4 England games after what has been a gruelling Premier League season, for me, does seem a bit excessive, and certainly by the 4th game, it looked like the England players needed a holiday. I quite like the lineup against Hungary the second time around. Ramsdale played in goal again, and I think he earned that because he was quite good against Italy. And then you had the likes of Mark Guehi starting, which was exciting. And then Conor Gallagher and Jude Bellingham together in midfield seemed promising. And then going forward, I think Jarrod Bowen has been relatively good for England and arguably one of the standout players for England over the last couple of weeks. So I was quite excited to see him start alongside Saka and Kane as a front three. Hungary's goal was relatively lucky, their first one, which was the free kick that went through all the players and then the Hungarian player just hit it into the bottom corner. But then what I was really disappointed with was the reaction for the England players in the second half. There was just no urgency and tempo, and I said that about the reaction against Hungary the first time around and in the Germany game, and we've seen it again where the England players just don't react after half time and they eventually just crumbled to a 4-0 defeat. Now, of course, it didn't help that John Stones got sent off, and the second yellow was just not a yellow. I just do not understand how VAR didn't overturn that, but nevertheless, it was really poor and damning. And like I said at the beginning of the video, arguably this is a worse week for Gareth Southgate than it is for the England players and the England national team, because throughout the second half especially, Gareth Southgate was booed, he was chanted by England fans, "You don't know what you're doing." It was very toxic, and at full time there were very, very loud boos. For the record, I am a Gareth Southgate fan ultimately, and I admire him, but you can also be a fan of someone and then also say that these last couple of weeks haven't been good enough. That's absolutely the case, and the reason I'm a fan of Gareth Southgate is because he's given us what no England manager for a decade has given us, and that's hope. He has given us pride and a sense of hope that we as England fans haven't felt for many, many years. We actually now look forward to these international games. We look forward to seeing England play and seeing these young players perform and express themselves. And that's because of Gareth Southgate. And the way that Gareth conducts himself off the pitch is really commendable. He speaks very well. He speaks well in terms of different topics that are happening off the pitch as well. But obviously, football management isn't about that. It's about being good tactically and getting wins. And unfortunately, at the moment, Gareth Southgate isn't showing that. For me, Gareth Southgate has so much credit in the bank. He reached the semi-finals of the Nations League, then semi-finals of the World Cup, and then final against Italy in the Euros, only losing on penalty kicks. And the idea that, England had an easy route and that we've got an amazing squad, I just don't buy that much, because as we've seen in years gone by, England have failed against good teams and bad teams. And when England lost to Iceland in 2016 in the Euros, the national team was at an all-time low. And we needed someone like Gareth Southgate to come in, be positively, practically optimistic, and actually show a sense of pride and hope. And that's what he's given us. So he's got a lot to, for us to be thankful for. And like I said, he's got credit in the bank. Having said that though, this toxic atmosphere at the full time with the fans, it just seemed different. It seemed like it was something that didn't happen over 90 minutes, that it's been bubbling for a number of different years, where pessimistic England fans or Southgate fans have been crying out for over a number of different years about how the football is negative, how that we were lucky with the route to the semi-finals and the finals of the different tournaments, and that actually we should have made a change sooner. And Gareth Southgate has actually held us back, not taken us forward. I definitely think some of the reaction is definitely an overreaction, especially on Twitter. I mean, we all know that Twitter can be a cesspit and horrific, toxic platform at times, but some of the abuse Gareth Southgate received on Twitter and some of the reaction was just nonsense. The idea that he's holding these players back is complete nonsense. Having said that though, yes, the football is not great going forward. It's not fluid attacking football. And given the squad England have, we could be doing better. But how many times we have said that over generations and generations where England squad's fantastic, but then we lose to Iceland, we draw with Algeria, we draw with the USA, we don't qualify for tournaments in USA 96. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, really, doesn't it? I can understand why people are frustrated with Gareth Southgate though, absolutely, because the squad is talented and so many times, especially in these couple of weeks, England would just play out from the back and there just wasn't enough attacking intent. And it's not like the XG was really high for England and they created so many chances. That's not the case. Kane had barely anything to feed off over the last couple of weeks. It's been really poor, especially going forward. Gareth Southgate has a lot of work to do and the timing's not great for him because his contract does end at the end of the World Cup, as we all know. What I'm really interested to hear and know from you guys watching, if you are watching, I'd really appreciate a comments below talking about what would constitute success for Gareth Southgate. Now, I've heard people online saying, oh, Gareth Southgate, we're going to bottle the World Cup if we don't sack him now. Okay, fair enough, could sack him. But A, who are we going to bring in? And B, what constitutes as success for England in the World Cup? How would we define as bottling? I mean, if we came up against the French national team at the World Cup, England would be the underdogs, right? France would be favourites. If we came up against Italy, arguably Italy would be the favourites. Germany would be the favourites. Spain perhaps would be the favourites. So actually, that's the big question. What would constitute as failure for England and Gareth Southgate? Maybe England could play very well, play good attacking football against France, but then ultimately come up short. But then because of the timing with the contract with Gareth Southgate, maybe his time is up anyway, who knows. But also, like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to sack Gareth Southgate, realistically, who are you going to bring in for the next 2 games in the Nations League and then the World Cup? Literally, the World Cup is 2 games away for England and Gareth Southgate's contract runs out at the end of the tournament. And people might say, oh, but if we don't sack him now, we're going to do bad in the World Cup anyway. We might as well just risk it and have a go. Fine, but Gareth Southgate has, I think, earned the right to be at this World Cup with his success in previous tournaments and the way he's developed this squad and the way that squad trust him and his coaching staff. I think Gareth has earned his right to be the manager in Qatar. I think it would be a catastrophe sacking him now. And realistically, who would you bring in? Now, most English managers in the past have been English, so assuming that the next manager is going to be English, who is available realistically out there that's got the capacity and capability of Gareth Southgate? And look, I know that Gareth Southgate isn't the greatest coach or tactician in the world. He's not, actually, you could arguably he's not particularly great, but even in the Premier League now, who's out there that's an English coach that would do just as good a job, if not better than him? But being realistic as well, Graham Potter's not going to leave Brighton, Eddie Howe's not going to leave Newcastle, and then actually, it kind of shows how poor the quality of English and British managers there are out there. I mean, I could think maybe Brendan Rodgers, because Leicester have had a really mixed, weird season, so maybe Brendan Rodgers could come in, but like I said, realistically, I don't think there's anyone available. Having said that though, I mentioned Brendan Rodgers. I could potentially see that scenario because Leicester, they could struggle at the beginning of next season. They sack Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers is available around winter time. The World Cup ends. Could he be the new England manager? Who are you going to bring in that's better than Gareth Southgate right now, realistically? And also, what would constitute as bottling it in the World Cup? For me, I think if England don't reach the quarterfinals, that would be poor. And I hate the word bottling, by the way, but I'm just saying it because, you know, it's easier to say. But like I said, I think that if England don't reach the quarterfinals, that would be poor and not good on Gareth Southgate. But then also, I genuinely believe, even if England do well, and even if England play well, I think Gareth Southgate's going to leave at the end of his contract because he's spoken about how he doesn't want to be an England manager for a crazy long time, and he's already been the manager for, at least 5, if not 6 years? It's quite a long tenure. So I wouldn't be surprised if he left at the end of the World Cup. But Gareth Southgate really needs to change things up because, like I said, there's only 2 games before the World Cup. So let me know what you guys think. Should Gareth Southgate leave? Or if he does stay, if you want him to stay, how should he change things up? What formation should we go with? I mean, looking at the recent games, it seems as though we're going to be playing 4 at the back, but who's going to be the centre-back partnership? I mean, Stones, probably, but Maguire, he's out of form. Left back, I mean, it seems like England played number of different left backs throughout these 4 games, and none of them are naturally left-footed. I mean, are Chilwell and Shaw even going to be fit in time for the World Cup and have that game preparation? And who's going to be playing in midfield? I mean, for me personally, Declan Rice is a world-class midfielder, but there's a massive drop between him and then the section of Phillips, Gallagher and Bellingham, as exciting as they are as 3 midfielders, especially Gallagher and Bellingham both being very young. I think there's a massive quality drop when you get rid of Rice. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in terms of Gareth Southgate's tenure as manager and whether he should stay or go. And let me know what you think would constitute a success for England in the World Cup. I'd love to know your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have reached this point, I really, really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe and leave your comments in the comment section below. Any feedback on Gareth Southgate in England, but also any constructive criticism of my videos and my style of content, I would really, really appreciate. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.